I couldn't function by myself. I couldn't work, barely walk by myself. I mean, my neurologist was like, well, we could put in a stent if that's what you want. And I was like, it's not what I want, but is it going to help me function? I started carnivore. And within 12 days, my visuals were almost completely gone. My neurologist, he's like, you can't do that. That's going to kill you. And I said, maybe in the long run, but for right now, I'm going to do this because I haven't been able to get upstairs in the light, but I don't give a damn about my cholesterol right now. I want to get up and dress and be functional. Like, who cares right now?
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy Thursday. We have Amanda here with us today who's going to share her, testimonial, her success story with us. So she's one of our coaches here. And give me a moment. I'm going to unmute her. Just so you guys know, if you got any questions for any of our guests, just type them in the chat and I will relay them as I can if they're appropriate. And I think there's something that'll, that they can answer. Sometimes there's questions people ask them like, there's no way this person's going to know the answer to that given their specialty. But anyway, welcome, Amanda. Let me unmute you real quick. Where are you located, Amanda?
Oregon.
You're in Oregon. Okay. Well, I'm just your northern neighbor up here in Washington State. What part of Oregon are you in?
Just right outside of Eugene.
Eugene, Oregon. Okay, nice. Well, awesome. Well, welcome and thanks for taking the time to do this today.
Thank you.
I guess just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you started and where you got to and all that type of stuff. So we'll let you start there and we'll find out if there's any questions we can figure out.
Okay. And if I'm talking too fast or too much because I get really excited and I'm very nervous, just cut me off.
That's okay.
So
there's no reason to be nervous here. We're all nice people. So go ahead and just relax and tell your story.
So my story really started back in 2011. I started getting intermittent bouts of flu-type symptoms where it was like every 3 or 4 months, I just started getting nausea, vomiting, dizziness, lightheadedness, brain fog, and I was missing 3 to 4 days of work every few months. And my doctor at the time just kept saying, oh, it's gastritis, you're fine, go back to work. So this lasted from 2011 to 2015. It was basically every 3 to 4 months. But the symptoms would get worse. It could be 3 days, it could be 7 days. And it was just like having the flu. And so I changed doctors a few times in those few years. And by 2017, my symptoms were every single month. I was having severe diarrhea, vomiting every morning, dry heaving. It just was exhausting. And then to try to go to work after multiple hours of being sick was my brain. I'm a physical therapist and my brain, I would just stare at people sometimes. I just couldn't, the connection was completely gone. So then in 2018, I got a new doctor. This was my 4th doctor. And he finally said, you know what? I think we need to test you for some things. I think we actually might want to see how your gastric system is actually working. So he sent me to a GI doctor. And during this time, I was having severe right upper quadrant pain, which I thought was my gallbladder. And it actually ended me up in the emergency room because one day I was walking from my living room to the kitchen, which is about 20 feet, and it dropped me straight to my knees. And my husband was like, that's it, we're going. So we went to the emergency room and they found that there was some sludge and there was some swelling in my gallbladder, but they found a fecal block in my small intestine. And so the GI doctor said, well, we'll do a colonoscopy. Little did I know at the time that a colonoscopy doesn't actually look at the small intestine where my fecal block was, but that's okay. So went through a colonoscopy, then a week later had an endoscopy, and in order to get the colonoscopy, I had to go through 14 days of a water fast with 2 bowel preps to clear the fecal block in my small intestine. Now, I see your face. Did that actually work? I don't know. They never said anything to me about it, whether it actually cleared anything out. They just did the colonoscopy and the endoscopy and found nothing. And esophagitis, so swelling of the esophagus and some tearing and stuff. And I mean, that is to be expected. I was literally dry heaving and vomiting every day. So 2018 was a battery of tests: HIDA scan, gastric emptying test, the endoscopy, colonoscopy, fecal test, urine sample, 24-hour urine sample. I mean, they tried to figure out what was going on, but nothing really came back. They never talked to me about diet. I was a triathlete. And so I was still trying to train, and they never talked to me about exercise. And so then at the end of 2019, my sister-in-law said, have you ever heard of SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or some people call it SIBO? And no, I hadn't. Even through all of our research, I hadn't heard anything about it. And so we looked it up, and my doctor didn't want to do the test, didn't want to order the test. So he sent me to a naturopath, and she ordered the test. And a month later, I was diagnosed with SIBO, which I'm assuming I had the entire time, just undiagnosed. So right away, my husband and I dove into the research, trying to figure out what is the best way to alleviate these symptoms. She gave me, I think, 5 different prebiotics, probiotics, all of these things. And so that was in January of 2020. And so by February, I started keto. And I started keto because basically the bacteria for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth feeds on sugar and carbohydrates. So I just figured if I got rid of those, I would stop being sick. So it helped. It decreased my symptom length of time I was sick, but I was still sick very often. So then all that really changed was in November of 2020, I had a massive migraine, which I think was brought on by sugar, but massive migraine with a seizure, thunderclap headache that left me with stroke-like symptoms. So after that happened, I was bedbound. I was unable to be in the light. I couldn't read. I couldn't listen to music. I lived in my bedroom with all the windows covered, blankets over the windows. And my husband had to help me get dressed, had to help me go to the bathroom, had to help me get food. I couldn't go upstairs, which is where our kitchen is. So it was really hard. It was a very, very hard time because I'm used to being outside. I have horses. We live on a small farm. And so all of a sudden, everything was left on my husband, which is not a place I like to be. I tried to figure out ways to do research to figure out what was going on. And I had amazing visuals that I can't even describe what they were like, but all I can say is they were like a laser light show. It was like flashing colors and symbols, and they would just shoot through my vision. I'd see things that weren't there. Like I saw a chicken in my bedroom. Of course, there was not a chicken in my bedroom, but I saw it there. I swear it was there. And so I was just seeing really random, crazy stuff. So finally, my husband and I said, I didn't want to go to the hospital. My husband's like, we should go to the hospital. I didn't want to go to the hospital. They've literally done nothing for me with all of my migraines in the past. So I really didn't think they were going to do anything for me this time. But because my vision was so bad and my head felt like it was going to explode all the time, I went to the optometrist. And the optometrist looked at my eyes and diagnosed me with brain swelling and papilledema, which is the disc in your eye swells. And then the nerves in my eyes were all swollen and blurred. And so he ordered an MRI and a referral to the neurologist. Well, I don't know how it is everywhere else, but it's not like I could just get into a neurologist at the end of the week or get into the MRI. So I got the MRI, was able to get into the neurologist by the end of January, and I still was completely non-functional at this time independently. And so my husband went with me, and my neurologist did a lot of different eye testing, but he didn't do a lumbar puncture. So he immediately just said, well, yeah, you've had brain swelling. You didn't have it the day you had the MRI, but you have a black, like scar tissue looking thing on your right eye nerve. And he said, so, it's fine. We're just going to put you on medication. And he started me on a triptan, 2 triptans actually, and topiramate, which is Topamax is the known medication. And so, or the name brand. And so he started me on 3 of those, 1 in the morning and 2 at night. And he said, okay, I'll see you in March. I wasn't functional. I was so disappointed when I left there thinking, what can I do for this? In the meantime, why am I you're just going to send me home. And he did. When I asked him at the very end, what would cause this? I've had migraines since I was 12. Why would this do this? And I don't mean to giggle, but at the time I was very frustrated. But he said, well, 2020 was a very stressful year. And so pretty sure that's what happened. Wait, what? Wait, what now? So I looked at him and I said, did you not hear me? 2020 was a fantastic year for my husband and I, not in the fact that COVID was awful, but my husband and I, we got to go camping and kayaking and backpacking and rafting. And we got to do things I hadn't done because of my gastrointestinal issues. So 2020 summer was way less stressful for me than the past 5 summers. So I was pretty disappointed. He sent us home. I went right back into my bedroom, had to have eye covers, the whole thing, couldn't be around music, noise, anything like that. So then in March, I went back to see him and he just increased my doses of topiramate. By April, I was just fed up. I just couldn't, if all he was going to do was increase my medication over and over, there had to be something. So I went to my primary care doctor. He put me on a CGRP, which is a Jovi, which is like a bioidentical or whatever they want to call it. I don't know, medication. It's an injectable. And you take it every 30 days. And so he started me on that. And then he also wanted to put me on an anti-anxiety medication. And so I did it. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do that. So did that. And by June, I actually felt like I was feeling a little bit better. I could get dressed. My husband could help me up the stairs, but I could be upstairs, which was a huge bonus. Once I could do that, I could get on the internet. I could be on the computer or on my phone for 10 to 15 minutes at a time before I'd go intermittently blind and literally have no eyesight at all. Excuse me. And so I would do that 10 or 15 minutes and try to do research, try to figure things out. And one of my colleagues reached out to me and said, I don't think it's migraines. I think you have idiopathic intracranial hypertension. I had no idea what that was. So I immediately looked it up and all of my symptoms matched what that was. And I said, well, who do I talk to about this? Because my neurologist is treating me like, well, it's age and migraine progression and you just have to live with it. So she referred me to Johns Hopkins Neurology, where she is an advocate for patients. And I talked to a neurologist there, got a CTV, an MRA to look at the veins and arteries in my brain. And they found that there was some swelling and there was some things that need to be addressed, but I should have had a lumbar puncture. So in order to get a lumbar puncture at this time, I'm now on 6 topiramate. I'd have to wean down off of my topiramate. And my neurologist didn't want me to do that. He was adamantly against it. So I was trying to find another neurologist, and we can't get second opinions. I don't know how it was with 2020 with you guys, but for us, there was no second opinions. I couldn't travel to Oregon Health Science University and get a second opinion. I was just stuck with who I had, basically. So by the end of 2021, I was still having a lot of the same symptoms. And I couldn't function by myself. I couldn't work. I couldn't barely walk by myself. I mean, everything was just slowly declining. Even my mental health, I will say, was definitely declining. I was not a happy camper. So by the end of December, my husband and I said, we have to figure out another way, because my neurologist was like, well, we could put in a stent if that's what you want. And I was like, it's not what I want, but is it going to help me function? I mean, it's really about me getting back to work and being a functional human being, not just laying in a dark room for the rest of my life. So I opted out. No stents, no surgeries, no exploratory surgeries. I didn't want anyone to cut on me. And so that's when, in the end of December of 21, I found Ribeye Rach. And I know you interviewed her just a little while ago. Mm-hmm. And I found her on YouTube because she had idiopathic intracranial hypertension as one of her diagnoses. And I watched a few of her videos and watched that within 3 months of her doing carnivore, she was able to stand and cook her own meals. And I wanted to stand and cook my own meals. I wanted to be able to go to the bathroom by my freaking self. Excuse me, sorry. But I just wanted to be a functional human being. And this was just ridiculous. So I said, well, I mean, I love meat already. So I don't feel like this is going to be a huge problem for me. My husband was on board, of course, because he loves meat. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So February 5th of 2022, I started carnivore. And within 12 days, my visuals were almost completely gone. Within 12 days, my head pressure that felt like it was blowing up like a balloon for all those months was gone. When I went back in and got my second MRI, because I wanted one that month, I was really curious to see before and afters. The lining of my arteries in the back of my head were back to normal within 12 days.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to Carnivore.diet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success.
Within 4 months, my gastrointestinal system was completely normal. I was having normal bowel movements every day. I had no more stomach issues. I had a little bit of floaters and a little bit of visual issues, but nothing like it was at all. And by August of last year, I would say I was about 80% better, give or take. I hadn't gone back to work yet because I would still get overstimulated where my body, if I was in like these lights here, are fluorescents and they drive me crazy still. But I just still had to be really careful. Like if we went hiking, I couldn't go for like a 5 mile. It'd be like, okay, we're going to go only be able to drive for 20, 30 minutes, hike for a half hour and then come home. I couldn't do any backpacking or anything like that all last summer. Yeah. So then in August, I started with the Steak and Butter Gang and I started priming and we started fasting. And just ever since then, and I think the community really helps, just having a very consistent carnivore eating habit, I guess. I feel great. I'm back to work. I'm at work. It's phenomenal. So yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Well, that's quite a story. And I'm glad you, got through it. I'm sorry you had to go through all that stuff. I just wonder how much money do you think was spent in healthcare costs to basically say, hey, just eat a better diet? I mean, seriously, I mean, I bet you spent $100,000, if not more. I mean, the CGRP inhibitors are $7,000 a year, on average. And so how much money and time and effort and specialists do you think you kind of spent wasting on all this
My
stuff?
husband actually calculated, like from 2011, we do our own taxes. And so we calculated, and from 2011 to the end of 2022, it was upwards of $300,000.
Wow. It's amazing.
And that, I mean, my insurance covers quite a bit, but
right.
If I didn't have insurance, I mean, we did spend $10,000 out of pocket just in the year of 2018 with all those tests.
Well, yeah, well, that $300,000 I paid for, and everybody else pays
right.
Insurance premiums, pays for that stuff. So it's no wonder we spend $4 trillion a year on healthcare, and we have not much to show for it, particularly when it comes to chronic disease. So it's a very sad situation. So you had this, basically almost quote unquote miraculous recovery from what was a very, very bad place with the GI symptoms, with the neurological symptoms, the quality of life where you're basically almost bedridden, where you can't do anything, to now you're back to work and happy and smiling and a functioning human being again. Did you have any follow-up with any of the neurologists or doctors subsequent to your dietary shift? And was there any comment? Because, the doctor, even the GI doctors, which to me, it just shocks me that they'll say that diet has nothing to do with your GI health. And I'm flabbergasted anytime somebody says that, but it still happens even today in 2023. Any feedback from physicians? Did you tell them you're eating an all meat diet? Did that ever occur? And what was the response?
So I did, because I went back to my neurologist. I wanted that MRI. I wanted to find out why I felt so good, like what had happened to my inflammation that fast. Because the other thing, Dr. Baker, is I wasn't eating just like crap every day. I mean, I was trying to follow a low carbohydrate keto diet, but also it had a lot of dairy, which I think is a problem for me, but I was trying to do things that they never even talked about. So for when I went back and said, I want to do this, and I am eating meat and eggs. That's literally all I'm eating. And I had not been eating dairy at that point. I told my neurologist, he's like, you can't do that. That's going to kill you. And I said, well, maybe in the long run, but for right now, I'm going to do this because I haven't been able to get upstairs in the light of my upstairs in 6 months. So I'm going to continue to do it. And still, I've only seen him once. He discharged me last November, and he still was like, I just don't promote this for you. I really don't think it's going to be healthy for you, and you're going to have cholesterol issues. And so his whole thing was just, he wasn't an advocate for it. My primary care doctor, on the other hand, is very supportive. He's like, whatever you need to do to make yourself feel better is fantastic. And he's an interesting fellow, but he's fantastic. And I really, really appreciate his openness to be supportive. And my optometrist just started being carnivore. I just went back to him in February, and a year after so it's been 2 years now, my eyesight, my papilledema on the right is completely gone. And my eyesight in my right eye was 0.50, and now it's 1, or a reverse of that. I'm not exactly sure, because I'm not sure how that works, but it's better. He couldn't believe it. He was like, wait, what are you doing? So I guess it's been mixed with, my primary care doctor being super supportive, but the neurologist not. And it's not shocking, to be honest. He wasn't really supportive of a lot of things. So, but for a migrainer, what I think is also interesting is that there's a lot of research on migraines being exacerbated by sugar and carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of information out there supporting this claim. And for a neurologist to not even say to you, like, maybe you should try to eliminate carbohydrates. Just a thought, just try it and see what happens. I mean, nothing. He never said a word to me besides lower my stress, which I manage my stress, I think, for the most part, as best as I can with meditations and therapy and my horses. And I mean, I do things to manage that. Sing super loud.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, I'd like to come up to the neurologist and just shake them. Hey, knucklehead, come here, guy. And it is. It's because they've been so brainwashed to believe that we must be chowing down on 60% of our diet coming from carbohydrates, or all these horrible things will happen. I mean, what was your quality of life looking at had you not made a dietary shift? I mean, you have a stent in your head, a shunt in your brain, chronically on medications, chronically disabled, probably maybe for the rest of your life out of work. Clearly, yep. I mean, it would be depressing, I would imagine. Oh. I mean, and so he's like, well, we don't want your cholesterol to go up. Well, what's the trade-off here, buddy? I mean, I don't know. Right. It kind of annoys me when I hear that.
Well, that's what I was annoyed, because I was like, but I don't give a damn about my cholesterol right now. I want to get up and dress and be functional. Like, who cares right now? Like, I'll deal with that later, if that's a problem even. But right now I can get up and dress myself. You haven't been able to provide me with that for 6 months. And so I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm angry. I wrote a letter. I was pretty upset about the whole thing. And now I feel like even more, I should write a letter. Like, so now it's been a year, and guess what? I'm back to work. I didn't actually ever go on disability because my husband and I own our own company, and we are very lucky. And so I didn't have to do that, but I would have. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Everyone else would have had to pay for me and my medical issues for the rest of my life.
But at least your cholesterol would have been lower.
Right.
that's where we've gotten to. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame. Now as a physical therapist, you obviously interact quite a bit with the medical profession. You're part of it, basically. How has this experience for you impacted your work? I mean, do you now realize that, hey, maybe changing your diet might help your condition? Because you're going to see folks that it probably would. Has that been something that's been impactful for you? And have you been able to utilize that approach with you said your own business, so maybe you're not under pressure to tell everybody to eat, 60% grains or whatever the hell they tell people to do?
No, thank goodness I am not under that pressure. So I took your course as a carnivore and fasting coach. Mm-hmm. And I also took the American Nutritional Association course on to be a certified ketogenic coach as well. So I really wanted, I'm kind of a geek and I like science and I like to learn stuff. So I really wanted to get as much information as I could, not only for myself, but for my clients. And it is a topic of conversation pretty much with everybody, because my clientele is chronic pain patients. I've been treating chronic pain patients since 2015. And so I deal with people that have had pain for decades or more and have never been told and have had multiple surgeries and all of these things to fix their problems and never been told that it's due to inflammation or the fact that, you shouldn't eat a pint of ice cream every night, things like that. So it's, I'm starting to set up a free, what do I want to call webinar? I'm not sure what I want to call it, but here at my office, I'm going to have patients come in and just listen to the talk on how to reverse diabetes or decrease diabetes. I have so many patients. We live in a very small rural area, and so many patients are type 2 diabetic and are told that it's a chronic progressive disorder. And I want to break that myth in our little community that it doesn't have to be a chronic progressive disorder and that we can do something about it. And I want them to feel supported, since the doctors, I don't feel, are supporting them. They just keep giving them more insulin or more metformin and not supporting the education that's out there. That I think that if people knew, I know at least most of my clients that know, they're willing to try something for a better life. They don't want the amputations. And I will say I'm a little blunt maybe in the fact that I tell them, if this keeps going, you're going to have an amputation. Mm-hmm. And I that may sound rude, but I need them to see it. I need them to picture it. I need them to understand that this isn't just going to stop progressing if they don't stop what they're doing. So yeah, I feel really excited now that I'm able to do these things and create these presentations and get more information out there. In our waiting room, I've made a carnivore pamphlet. It's out there, low carb, keto, ketovore, carnivore pamphlet. So when people come in, I don't want to be pushy necessarily because people get put off by that, but I want them to have the information. I want them to I feel like the more we're aware that we can make the change, I don't know, it's like dropping a seed, right? Maybe that seed will grow in some people.
Yeah, no, and kudos for you for being willing to talk about this stuff, because many people most people aren't educated enough or don't have the experience to see where the change that I've seen every day, and I'm sure you see now. With regard to chronic pain, how much, things like sugar, or, I'll just use that as an easy target. How much do you see as sugar affecting people's chronic pain, or are you able to notice that?
Yeah, so I did a survey last year of 150 of our patients to find out, kind of what their dietary intake was. It was very generic. It was just 5 basic questions, but I wanted to know, and then I wanted them to rate their pain on a daily basis. And we did this for 30 days. And yeah, they started noticing I have horrific pain the following morning after I eat my pint of ice cream, but I only eat my pint of ice cream 3 days a week. So, it's not every day. It's okay, I get that. However, do you see the correlation between you eating the pint of ice cream and then you coming into my office hunched over, barely able to stand up? I can't fix that. I'm sorry. I would love to be able to, but I can't personally fix that. You have to change that inflammatory response in your body. So I'm trying again to let people see it in their own life rather than me trying to force it upon them. So yeah, I'm trying to do more of that, just more questions and more people trying to understand what they eat does have a direct relationship to their pain and their inflammatory response.
Yeah, it clearly does. I ashamedly, I'll admit that when I was practicing as an orthopedic surgeon, even more than a decade ago, and people would come in telling me that eating, say, gluten hurt their knee, I didn't believe them. I just thought they were nutty. Come to turn out that they're probably completely spot on. And few people notice that because we eat such a varied diet that it's hard to put 2 and 2 together. It lets you eat some kind of rare food that you've never eaten before, and then you kind of get this sort of sense that's a problem. But most of us eat generally hundreds and hundreds of types of food, different products, and we can't put it together. So you said initially the dairy was you thought it was inflammatory or driving some of your conditions. What does your diet look like? How did you start on this when you finally made the switch to carnivore, and how does it look today?
Well, it's a lot different. I will tell you that. So when I started, I didn't really know what to do besides eat meat, and I love red meat. So I had no problem getting red meat. We have a butcher right down the road. So I had no problems getting that. So I just ate whenever I felt hungry. But what it turned out was like kind of, one meal a day. Like most people say, they're satiated. And I was, but you have to understand when I started too, I was sleeping a lot. I was sleeping upwards of 18 hours. So when I would eat, I would just eat and then I'd just go back to bed. So for the first few months, it was pretty basic. It was ground beef, maybe some eggs with my ground beef and, maybe a ribeye here and there. But then as it got more and more, I started realizing that I don't know that I'm eating enough. I'm not losing weight. I thought for sure I'd just drop a bunch of pounds and I wasn't, but I was feeling so much better. I just really didn't care. And so then I started being like, okay, I need to eat more throughout the day. So I started being like, okay, I'm going to have pork belly and eggs for breakfast. I'm going to have some sort of red meat for dinner. And I really stuck to that. But then after priming, which is 3 meals a day, plus everything, just stuffing yourself, gorging yourself, which was fantastic. I actually lost weight, which was super interesting. But after that, now I do alternate day fasting. And I feel like it was the step I needed into progressing the rest of my healing, because my energy is back. I'm back to work and I am able to do so much more. So now I basically I eat the same thing every day, pork belly and eggs when I get off work. And then, which I work part-time from my office and then part-time from home. So I get off at 12:30, 1 o'clock. I eat my pork belly and eggs. And then around 5 o'clock, I eat a pound of ribeye with usually some extra meat fat. And then the next day I just don't eat. And then the next day I do the same thing.
So it looks like when the days that you are eating, you're kind of skewing a little bit to a more higher fat approach. Is that fair to say? Are you trying to hit a certain macronutrient ratio, or you just kind of do to satiety?
Yep, I'm just eating to satiety. I know a lot of people have played. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm super lazy about that. I don't count calories or macros or anything. I find that if I eat a little bit more meat fat with my steak, I'm fuller longer. It seems to get me through the next day. Mm-hmm. I don't add a bunch of butter and stuff to my pork belly and eggs. I mean, I cook it in butter or sometimes bacon grease, but I mean, I guess it's a higher fat because it's not just meat. I am adding fat, but I have no idea, to be honest, what the ratio is.
Now, do you mind sharing how old you are?
I'm 43.
43. Okay. So if we look now, some of the skeptics would say, hey, you've cured your neurologic issues, you've cured your gut issues. Why not go to an omnivore diet? All this red meat and saturated fat's going to kill you. It's going to give you a heart attack. So if we talk about like cardiovascular risk factors, I mean, there are many that are out there. And I think, we become sort of myopically focused on just one number, particularly the LDL cholesterol. Some people would say ApoB. We're missing a lot there. So glucose control, inflammatory markers, blood pressure, overall body composition, lipid markers, triglyceride, HDL, LDL. How are we looking at that right now?
So many things. Really quickly, just want to let you know, I was diagnosed with polycythemia during all of this as well. So polycythemia, high red blood cells, high hemoglobin. And I just found out that I do not have leukemia and I will not have leukemia in the future. So it's not an actual bone marrow issue. So
you're looking at all these different labs and you notice you have polycythemia vera. So is your red cell count normal? Is it still high or is it normalized or where is it at now?
Yeah, it's 16.2.
Okay, so it's still high. Slightly high, not super high, but slightly high. Yeah.
No, and my hematologist said it's pretty good. So I was looking at all these labs and my HbA1c is 4.7. My fasting glucose is still 101, which I thought was interesting, but I do feel like I still have some healing to go on. So I'm not really worried about it because when I fast, it goes down to 82. So
yeah, let me do, because I'll and that's a good point. I want to comment on this because this is a common thing I see. I don't think you're fasting in 12 hours on a carnivore diet. Oh. I think if you want to get a true fasting blood glucose, you need 18 to 24 hours just because of the GI transit time of a big steak or something like that. It's going to sit in your gut for a long time. It's going to slowly break down, and you're probably still absorbing nutrition even the next morning, assuming you've eaten dinner or even a late lunch. So because you said when you fast, it goes down to 80. So I think your true fasting number is when you're truly actually fasting. Sorry to interrupt, but that's an important point that I think I want to know.
I have a question about that. Yeah. So if I do that, it's because my doctor's like, never fast more than 12 hours before you give blood. But I mean, Can I? And
Yeah,
that would be okay.
Of course you can. Now, the reason they don't want you doing that is because you'll get hypoglycemic. And, I mean, that's the concern. They're always concerned about your blood. This is why literally when you go for a procedure and they make you NPO, nothing to eat, NPO, nothing paraz, after midnight, 8 hours before you eat. The first thing they do is they slam an IV in you and load you up with sugar water because oh my God, your glucose could get low. So we want to get that sugar in you because you haven't eaten in a whole 12 hours. My God, you're going to die. Well, no one can go that long. That is the whole rationale behind this NPO, and then subsequently, reloading up on glucose. So my God, for some reason, the physicians think that if a human goes more than 6 hours without eating, they're going to starve to death or something's going to their brain's going to stop functioning, and it's like, I'm sitting here, I haven't eaten in, I only ate one meal yesterday around an hour. I haven't eaten in 22 hours. Here I am, it's just funny.
I haven't eaten in 40.
Right. So there we go. We're both fine.
Not
right?
fine.
So, funny. Okay, so you said you checked your fasting blood glucose. It was a little high. Your A1C, though, is very, very low, which is normal. You said, I don't know, blood pressure, other labs.
My blood pressure is normal. My oxygen rate is normal. My heart rate has lowered, which is awesome. Yeah. But I also I'm now able to exercise again. Woohoo! I love exercise. It's one of my stress reducers. So that was a huge change for me, which I think, is playing a big role in also just mental and physically how I feel. Not everyone has to exercise. I get that. But for me, I love it. So I want that in my life. So everything is good. Now my LDL has come up, but again, my primary care physician isn't worried about it. He did say, do you want to go on a statin? And I said, no. And he's like, okay, I'm fine with that. Like, he didn't argue with me. He didn't. Yeah. So everything is good. And my LDL hasn't skyrocketed by any means. It's still, I think, was 260 or something like that. So I didn't even feel like it was that outrageous. My triglycerides were pretty awesome, 34, which made me extremely happy. I feel like everything is going in the right direction, and I'm not worried about my cholesterol.
Yeah, and again, because this is a great thing, because we often see this. Everything looks great except the one marker, the LDL cholesterol rises, and of course the physicians are like, "Oh my God, we're going to put you on a statin. Stop your crazy diet. Go eat cardboard again." And I think the thought might be that cholesterol is a dependent variable, and it depends what else is going on, whether or not it's truly impactful. Now, that's controversial, and I can't say that with 100% certainty. There are some studies that are in progress that may shed more light on that. But at the very least, at some point, after age 40, you can go get some imaging and follow imaging to see if you actually are accumulating plaque in your arteries at a rate not expected or high rate, and I suspect probably you won't be. That's been my observation for a lot of people that have done that. So I mean, thankfully, your ophthalmologist is carnivore. Your primary care physician is cool with it, so that's good to hear. Did your husband adopt a carnivore diet, or what's he doing?
Yes, he is a carbie. I will say he still loves his biscuits and butter. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that, but he has picked up a carnivore diet and a fasting lifestyle, which is pretty phenomenal. I mean, he can't deny the change. I mean, he was literally picking me up and taking me to the bathroom. So now he's like, if this can do this for you, and he's not sick in any way. So just so you know, my husband is a very healthy, avid soccer player, has not had health issues his whole entire life, gets sick once every 10 years or something crazy. So for him to do this was phenomenal. He's cutting out, which I think he just loves the way that it makes his body feel. He exercises multiple days a week too. And so it was hard at first when he wasn't as carnivore as he is now, only because he would bring home treats and stuff. And I'm not going to lie, I liked sugar. Don't get me wrong. I liked sweets, and I liked buttery bread, and I like potatoes with sour cream and cheese and stuff. I mean, so don't get me wrong. I wasn't just like, this was the easiest transition in the world. However, when I got my life back, the transition was easy. It wasn't hard anymore to make good decisions. So now he makes it easier by just not bringing that stuff into the house. And you said earlier, you touched on, why don't you go back to being an omnivore? So I did experiment, Dr. Baker, a little bit with a sweet potato. I read Dr. Pelz's book on fasting and how when you go into your cycle, you're supposed to have more carbs as you're building progesterone. I thought, I always fast during my cycle, 3 days, 72 hours once a month. So I was like, I wonder if that will help. Like, will that reduce my symptoms? No, it did not. I had severe upset stomach and I had, excuse me, everyone, sorry, but horrible cramping. And I was like, well, I will never do that again. And it was still just one half of a sweet potato. So I have no reason to go back. I know right away that it's going to affect me.
Yeah. I mean, it's, because so many women have this kind of premenstrual dysphoria, this horrible, I mean, it's literally they're wrecked for a week in many cases. They just feel miserable. Mm-hmm. And why would that be normal? I mean, why would we design a species where, you're in pain for a week out of the month or something like that? It just does not make sense to me. And so when I see this, and you are by no means the first woman to mention that their menstrual cycle has greatly improved by going carnivore. It seems to just level things out. It becomes more manageable. And it just seems, I mean, I don't believe we were designed to be a species that is supposed to be in pain. It just wouldn't make sense to me. So it's good to see a more confirmation of what I've seen in the past. As far as other things that people often ask about, you said, eating a decent amount of fat, you're eating kind of when you're hungry, you're not really counting calories. Do you worry much about sort of salt and electrolytes? Are you a salt person or no salt? I know there's some people that are no salt people. There's other people that are, a little bit more liberal with the salt. Where do you fall on that?
I love salt. I love salt a lot. So one of the things, like going through my migraine journey and trying to figure out what is going to heal my brain or at least mitigate my symptoms, was Angela Stanton's book, Migraines, and following her salt protocols. Right. So that, and when I first wanted to get out of my house and go to the coast, which is an hour from my house, I did her salt protocol where you take 1/8 teaspoon of salt, wait 10 minutes, drink 8 ounces of water. And I did that every 2 hours. And I was able to make it to the coast, see the ocean, put my feet in it, get back in the car and go home with very little symptoms. I was fatigued afterwards, but that was my first indication that salt was something that I need to have in my life. I would say it's lessened. So like, I don't take the 8 teaspoons now that you mention it.
So then, and that migraine intervention was pre-carnivore, I'm assuming, correct?
No, I learned about that with carnivore. Okay. So it was, I was on carnivore, but then she was like, eat more salt. So I was like, okay. So I did that with carnivore kind of as an adjunct.
And as far as, you said you still have slightly elevated hematocrit, with the polycythemia. Any other symptoms? I mean, the migraines are completely gone. The neurologic pressure in your brain, the weird visual auras and things are all gone. The GI, the SIBO, or if that's what it actually was, seems to be all that's gone. Is that correct?
That is, as long as I stay carnivore. Mm-hmm. If I sway off just to even look at something that I shouldn't, my body says, hey, what are you doing? So it is, all of that is gone. I still, like I said, I feel like I'm probably 85% better because I still, if I overdo, like I went horseback riding for the first time in 2 years the other day. And I usually would go for like a 4 or 5 hour ride. We're really lucky. We have Weyerhaeuser property across the street we can ride on, 500 acres. And I didn't make it that long. I made it about an hour and a half, and I could feel kind of this, I need to stop doing this. This is a bit much for me right now. So there's still healing going on, but I feel like, I'm almost there. I feel like I'm almost there. It's just a little bit of overstimulation at times.
Okay. And regarding quality of life now versus, whenever you're in the thick of things, 3 years ago or whatever it was your worst, how would you rate the difference?
Oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, I was at 0, and I'd say I'm at a 9 now. Like 9 being good, right? 0 being,
well,
I was having some issues.
Spectacular. There is a question because you mentioned dairy was a problem for you before now, but you said you're using some butter. Is it some dairy, all dairy? It seems like butter's tolerated. How do you do with dairy these days?
So if I'm having a little bit of meat aversion, which happens with me in ground beef every once in a while, never with ribeye, but with ground beef every once in a while, I'm feeling a little like, I don't really love it. I'll put some blue cheese or something in it, and it doesn't bother me like it did. And I wouldn't say it bothered me. It wasn't like I had stomach issues or skin issues, but what would happen was I would swell. And some people are like, oh, You do not. But I have pictures of my hands prior to and after, and my hands would literally swell up. So it doesn't do that now, but I haven't sat down with like one of those cheesy, meaty casseroles in a long time. I just don't do that anymore. So I can't fully answer that, I guess, but I do eat butter. And sometimes I'll eat butter and tallow combination with crispy ground beef bars or whatever they're called. So butter doesn't seem to bother me as long as I stay clear of like the skim milk stuff, anything that has any quantities of sugar, really.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of, I guess there's I'll call it a trend. I guess a lot of people are eating this brown butter bites. I've not had those, but I mean, a lot of people are into that lately. And so I'm sure it tastes quite good, I'm sure. I don't know if you mess with that.
I tried them, Dr. Baker, and they're fine, whatever. I mean, I don't know. They kind of taste like fudge, which to me was a little bit of a trigger. So I was like, I can't do that. But someone just said that if you burn butter, it changes the chemistry of it or something, and it can be not good for you. I don't know. Don't quote me on any of that. I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have this Maillard reaction, this Browning reaction, which is, basically the sugar interacts with the proteins and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I'm sure it changes the quality somewhat. I don't know how bad it may or may not be.
Yeah.
Are you, since you've been doing this, and I mean, obviously your husband's lived with you and seen this whole thing, but has there been anybody else that has kind of like observed this outside of the medical, like friends, family, coworkers, people you've seen that have said, what the heck did you do? And then when you tell them, they're like, oh my God, that's bad for you, or what's the response been?
Yes. So my best friend since I was 9 years old is a vegan. And so we have a lot of difference of opinions, but I will say that I tried to be vegan for 3 days and it made everything so much worse that I couldn't continue. My stomach issues quadrupled and I didn't even think that was possible. So we have difference of opinions, but she told me the other day, she's like, I'm vegan, but I love salami. So I'm not sure how vegan she actually is. How
does she know?
I was like,
how does she know she loves salami? She's vegan.
Yeah, I was
that's kind of a weird thing.
You eat salami? What's happening? So I know that there is a mix of people that say that they're vegan or say that they're vegetarian, but they actually eat meat in there and just don't tell her, oh, it's only once a week or something. So we have difference of opinions, but I missed her 40th birthday. I missed, so many things while I was sick, kids' birthdays. I mean, so many things. So they have seen that I can now drive because driving was out of the question since I was seeing stuff. And they have been actually extremely supportive, even with her veganism. So it's good. But really the biggest change has been my dad, because my dad is now carnivore. And as much as he's always loved meat, and he did Atkins and lost 50 pounds before his total knee replacement. And now, but he also used to eat bags and bags of popcorn. Mm-hmm. So now he's just not doing it. And his inflammation is down. It's only been a couple of weeks, but they see it now. It took a while because I had a lot of ups and downs and healing issues going on, but people around me are definitely noticing. Patients, everyone is just like, what's going on with you? And so it's been pretty positive, really.
Are you said you guys owned your own business. Are you bringing your food to work, or do you eat at work, or do you just do everything at home?
I do everything at home, really. Because I only work part-time at the office. I just don't eat during that time.
Okay. And you mentioned a little bit of social media stuff. Do you have like a social media page or anything like that? Do you do any of that stuff and talk about your diet, or no?
I'm really bad about that. No, but I have made a recording, Dr. Baker, for YouTube. Everyone keeps telling me, start YouTube. You could totally do this. I made the recording. I have not done anything with it. But I plan to. I feel like at this point, my patients are asking me more than anybody. Like, I'd really like to see what all happened to you. What'd you do? How'd you get started? Because my husband brings his food. And so people get to see, like, he's just eating steak for lunch, or he's just eating ground beef for lunch. And they're like, that seems boring. So more people are asking me more things. And I just don't have the time in my day, because I also run a physical therapist equine clinic. So I do physical therapy on horses. I've been able to start that back up again. So I I want to do it because I feel like I have the knowledge that I could and the experience now to help people. Just at the beginning, I didn't really know what I was doing, so I didn't want to give anybody bad advice.
Well, fair enough, and I think that's a reasonable approach. Have you, within the context of your work, I suppose, has the knowledge that you've gained through your own struggle and journey and overcoming that, and the knowledge about diet, has that made work more enjoyable? Does that make sense? Or,
Oh my gosh, yes, that makes perfect sense. I love my job. I love people. I love helping people. I love when they walk out of my office and they're like, I feel better. Yes, I feel better too. So when I started hating my job, dreading going to work, I knew there was something wrong. I mean, I knew there was something wrong, obviously, because I was sick, but it was way more than just being sick. So my job is incredibly enjoyable. As you know, everyone's a little bit different, waxes and wanes, and people have their own ideals, but for the most part, my job is fantastic. And I couldn't be happier with the fact that I actually enjoy coming to work now. I was really scared the first day a couple weeks ago. I was really scared that I wasn't going to make it through the day, but it's been fantastic. And everyone has been extremely supportive. And I just love it.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Have you gotten any, well, let me ask, any downsides to the diet, either during the transition period or currently? Any, digestive issues or sleep problems or pains or rashes or any of those things affect you at any time during this transition or currently?
I wouldn't really know about the diarrhea because I already had so much of that. So I'm not sure that the diet played a role because it started getting better. Rather than people are like, I have explosive diarrhea. I never had, I had already been having that. So I didn't notice any change in that. Definitely sleep was a little bit of an issue at first because I was getting those significant like meat sweats and hot flashes, but now that's gone. So no, I didn't. No, I would say no, I guess, to answer just.
Okay. Fair enough. That's fair enough. That's a fair question. And has there been anybody that's been down negative to you? Like, it sounds like your vegan friend is reasonably cool with it. Some might not be, some might unfriend you because you're a quote unquote animal abuser or whatever they like to tell everybody. 99% of the people on the planet are supposedly animal abusers, according to them. Right. Has there been any negativity directed your way because of this or due to this?
A little bit. We do live outside of Eugene, so I don't know what everyone knows about that, but there are a lot of, I'm just going to put it out there, we like our trees. I do too. Okay. And I love animals. I have a farm. I have animals. I love my chickens and horses and all those things. So there's been, some people think that I'm killing the planet, right? That's, I think, the biggest one I get is that you eat so much meat. Do you know how much cow you're eating? And I said, well, I just bought a cow and a half. So I would say that's how much I'm eating in a year is a cow and a half. So, but I'm not sure that cow and a half is creating as much, anyways, as you know, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So there are some people, and even my vegan best friend loves to tell me that I'm killing the planet. But she also knows that when I cut a tree, I plant a tree, and I'm weird like that. And so, she just, people that know me know that I would never do anything to harm anything or anybody on purpose. And that I believe that, my ranchers around here are breeding these cows on these beautiful farmlands, and the cows have lived a great life, and then they get to serve me a purpose as well. So I kind of just turn the flack back at them and thank you for all the knowledge about, the environment and all of the things I can find from all of your information that I can give back to them and say, well, actually, this is the true, what's really happening. We just,
well, really, don't take my word for it. Go to a farm, go to a ranch, go actually experience. Because, like I said, whenever I go to ranchers, they're taking wonderful care of those animals. They truly care about them. Now, granted, they're all going to turn into hamburger, but right. They're dying anyway, and they're going to get eaten anyway. And all of us are going to be food for something. I'm going to feed something when I die, unless I get cremated. But but assuming we die, and at some right. point our body gets eaten, whether we care or not. It's happening. So the circle of life type of thing. Yeah.
Dr. Baker, there was a mountain lion on our property just a couple months ago. He could have eaten me. in about a second. I could have been lunch. I mean, it's in my opinion, the circle of life. And I love my ranchers and my butcher. I know all of them. They're right here. I can go talk to them and they're open to me. And that was the other thing about YouTube. I was kind of hoping that they'd be open to discussing, what their life is like as ranchers and butchers that do this all the time. Mm-hmm. And so I feel very lucky to have that this close to me, but I know that, I mean, like he said, he's like, this could be your cow. I mean, I could just go and talk to the cow I'm going to have that's going to be mine next year. So.
Well, I think that's a good, unfortunately, we're running out of time. I have to go hop on and do a consult right now, but thank you very much, Amanda. Your story is inspiring. You're just a wonderful advocate. I enjoyed talking to you. For the rest of the folks, we'll be back tomorrow. I think our guest tomorrow had to reschedule, so we're having an open discussion tomorrow. Anyway, Amanda, good on you, and keep us updated if, anything else exciting happens, but good luck to you. Okay.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, guys. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you guys tomorrow.